Hey there everybody, it's Mark Riley. I'm back with another How to Draw video. Today I'm going to be comparing 3 different ways of doing chibi proportions. This character is going to be 3 heads tall. You can see I already drew the basic shape of the head, and then we're going to compare that to one that's 2 heads tall and one that's even less than 2 heads tall, the most extreme version. We're going to get to that later. But let me go ahead and begin sketching out the body of this character, and I've decided as my example character to draw Thor from the Marvel movies and from the comics originally, we should say. Because this is, of course, the summer of Endgame, and I thought, why not pay tribute to that character as I draw him 3 different ways, using 3 rather drastically different proportion systems. And it'll be fun to see, but how it looks different. How the same character looks different as we draw him using these 3 different proportion systems. Now, I don't intend to do a big line-by-line kind of video here where I tell everyone here, put this line here and then put this line there and then this is how you do it. More it is really about comparing the different proportion styles, although what I'd like to do is maybe focus on the face in particular when we get to that, and slow down a little and talk about how I might draw the face quite differently depending on the sort of relative height of the character. And as the character gets shorter, or fewer heads tall, I guess we could call it, the way of drawing you're going to draw fewer and fewer of the details of the character's face. Chibi, the Chibi drawing style in general is dispensing with details, but if you choose to draw a character as I'm doing right now, that is only 3, or is as much as 3 heads tall, you are going to get closer to real human anatomy. Just because you've given yourself the space. Like, for example, you can see that the shoulders here are wider than the head, which of course they would be in normal human proportions. But as we move on to these other styles, you're going to see that the shoulders are not as wide as the head, in fact considerably narrower than the head. But hopefully at least going through this first part a little bit in real time could help you to follow along if indeed you wanted to draw the exact same pose that I'm drawing. But really this is not so much about the pose, as I said, it's more about comparing the different features. So I'm going to go ahead and sort of finish off a few more details of the body, and then we're going to zoom in and start going a little more line by line as we draw the details of the face. Alright, so you can see that when you want to get into the details of the costume but still draw in a chibi style, this sort of 3 heads tall approach is not a bad way to go, because it does allow you more space for drawing the details of the costume while still giving it that kind of cute chibi feeling. So as I said, I'm going to zoom in now on the face, and we're going to get into drawing the facial features. Now, when I'm thinking of chibi characters, I normally imagine them with really quite large eyes, but since we're doing this 3 heads tall version, I feel like we can get a little smaller with the eyes, compared at least to the way chibis are often drawn. And indeed, I want this, as it is Thor, to have a look of determination on his face. We've got to beat Thanos. Is it Thanos or Thanos? Somebody correct me in the comment section. So I am drawing the eyes a little small by chibi standards. Of course, still quite huge by human standards, unless it was a baby, I suppose. And of course, the chibi characters, part of the reason they're so cute is their facial features the proportions are rather similar to like toddlers or babies. Very often the nose is not drawn at all in chibi characters, but again, with this character being a little closer to conventional anatomy, I am going to go ahead and give him a nose. He may be the only one who gets a nose. I suppose the second version might get a little bit of a nose. Now, he has a beard, so we're going to have to indicate, hey, look, I used the word indicate. Haven't been able to do that for a while. Old school followers of my channel will remember the days of Indicate. So let's go ahead and get the just the basic outlines of a beard here. And as we head along to drawing the hair, you're going to find in this version that I get as much into detail as I'm going to in terms of drawing maybe not individual hairs, but trying to get the sort of texture of the hair in there. And I'm trying to remember how Chris Hemsworth has his hair done in Endgame. It is, of course, considerably shorter than when he made his debut as Thor. But he looks equally good no matter what you do with his hairstyle. Darn him. Darn you, Chris Hemsworth, always looking good. But I think the hair kind of goes up a little bit here. And so, yeah, you see me adding a few lines here and there to show individual hairs, I suppose, or little strands of hair. And maybe get a highlight in here on each one of the eyes. There's barely enough room, really, for that in this proportion system. And maybe a hint of the other ear, and I believe I would be done with this character. Maybe some people might like to give him a little bit of texture here on the beard. I don't know. He has a fairly closely cropped beard, I believe. But there you go. There's the version that is 3 heads tall, and you see not a huge amount of detail, but trust me, it's going to be way more detail than we will get in the subsequent versions. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and head on to the next one, which is going to be only 2 heads tall. So for this one, I put the top and bottom lines 3.5 inches apart, which is, what does that work out to? Almost exactly 9 centimeters. And I'm going to go ahead and jump in here and draw the head as the basis of our proportion system. And yeah, I mean, once you get to the point of the a head being equal to the size of the entire rest of the body, we are getting into a much more chibified state. Now, I'm not meaning to say that all chibis must be either this version or this. No, there's, you can choose your own between the two. You might decide to have your character be 2.5 heads tall, let's say. Or anything that looks good to you, basically. I don't think there are like laws, chibi laws, or like chibi police that are going to bust down the door if you draw it in a way that is unconventional. I think you should feel free to do it any way you like. But so you can see me already having made the eyes larger, starting to get into a slightly more exaggerated way of drawing the face. And I think indeed if I draw the nose at all, I'll just make it like a little dot, let's say, here. And yeah, let's dispense with all the details, basically all the details of the beard, and just make it a series of lines here. The ears, I think, could be even simpler. Not that they were so complicated before, but maybe just one line in there, let's say. And I'll go ahead and drop in the other ear over there. And as far as the rest of the hair goes, this is where I would really start simplifying things a great deal and allowing myself to get more cartoonified. Is that a word? Cartoonified? It is now. Got to cartoonify this little guy. And so, yeah, at this stage, and that's part of the pleasure, I think, of chibi, is you don't have to worry so much about details. And indeed, if you get too many details, it'll look a little bizarre, I think, especially when you get into these more exaggerated proportion systems. In fact, I think that's going too far. I'm going to just go ahead and erase it. Maybe just have one little strand of hair there and leave it at that. Although we should get a highlight in here, and maybe because we're getting a little closer in on the face, I might be able to have some indication of the pupils. But I'm not going to draw lower eyelids. I refuse to draw lower eyelids. And there you go with the head. Now that means that when we get to drawing the body, we've got very little space left, and so we are going to just dispense with proportions, conventional proportions altogether. His shoulders are not even as wide from side to side as his head, which is pretty crazy. But that's what Chibi's all about, right? Time to get crazy. One thing I noticed some Chibi artists doing is that they will, even within the sort of proportions of the body, will make the legs extra short. Generally speaking, if I were to try to draw a body within, from shoulders down to the toes, the center of the body might be a little higher normally for me, but I'm actually dropping down the pelvis way down here and making the legs super short. Just to have fun with the whole chibification process. And at this stage, I think I really should kick it into time-lapse just to finish this one up. I don't want to labor too long or spend too much time on any one of these, especially in terms of drawing the body. So let me finish this off in time-lapse, and I'll be right back. All right, well, there you see the two different versions so far, and as I said before, you might choose to sort of split the difference between 3 heads tall, 2 heads tall. You might say, let's go 2.5 heads tall. Yeah, go ahead and tell me in the comments section, indeed, if you have a preferred system of Chibi proportions. I'd love to hear about it. But it is time now to move on to the most extreme of them all, the character that is less than 2 heads tall. And you're going to see me change my drawing style quite considerably. All right, so for this one, I really am going to try to do something quite different, and that is to go for a hyper-simplified version of Thor's head, in which we, first of all, sort of greatly flatten out the bottom of the jaw. And I've seen people do this style that's quite adorable, really. It tend to do it with very thick lines, and they go for going minimalism. Really, is what it is. You're simplifying it as much as you can. And I'm not going to draw any details in these eyes. I'm just going to make them into big ovals. And those of you who are still see yourself as beginners in your artistic journey, might be fun to start with something like this, because it just requires certainly the least of the 3 different styles that I'm showing today, the least detail. You can do it much more quickly. It doesn't require much in the way of patience. I'm skipping the nose altogether. And then for the beard, I'm just, going to draw a straight line right across, all the way up and across to the hair. I suppose we should not make the forehead too large. That might look bizarre. And yeah, the ears, I'm going to drop them way down low. I'm not going to put any lines in the ears at all. And at this point, I'm almost challenging myself to use the fewest lines possible in the contour of his hair. I think you're getting into the realm of creating a sort of an icon, almost. Something that could be shrunk down really small, and you'd still be able to see what it is. Very often, the more detailed something is, once it is shrunk down, it becomes harder for you to tell from a distance what you're even looking at. If you think about like the Apple Watch, and they knew that they had to make all these icons really small, and I think that's partly why Apple greatly simplified all the icons. They used to have highly detailed icons for different things like the Photos app or whatever. Why am I talking about the Apple Watch when I should be... Oh, right, it's the Chibis making things simple so that it can be easily comprehended, basically, easily viewed from afar. Now watch how tiny I'm making this body. It's a little bit crazy. Or it's a lot crazy, because he's getting super bobble-headed now. And you have liberated yourself from any requirements of getting the details right at all. There are no details basically. You're simplifying it down as much as you can. Although I still want him holding his battle axe, what is it called? Stormbreaker, his latest weapon. It does seem a little strange to be drawing Thor without his hammer. Some of you may be disappointed that I didn't draw the hammer, in which case I would encourage you, draw the hammer. Draw Thor's hammer. Now look how I'm doing the feet here. They're pointy. I mean, I'm doing these pointy little starfish kind of feet. I've seen artists do this when they get into this highly exaggerated chibi approach. They just dispense with the feet altogether, and you get this pointy-toed contour, which is kind of adorable. Let's be honest. Here I am trying to get the axe blade details. Come on, Krilly. But I should not forget his long red cape. Edna Mode would not approve of Thor's long red cape. It was not my design, darling. And there you go. There's our 3 different versions. Now what I'm going to do all in time-lapse is add color, ink it up. Oh, I forgot his other arm. Talk about getting rid of details. I got rid of one of his arms. I'm going to go ahead and ink it up and add color and just finish everything off as fast as I can, and we will be back with a few final words. Alright, well there you see the difference between the 3 different proportion systems, and you see how I added a much thicker line on this one just for fun to show you that there are indeed so many different ways of drawing chibis. And let me know what you thought of this one. I'd be happy to do more like it, comparing different ways of drawing chibis, different ways of drawing more realistic characters. But this couldn't possibly be done if I don't add the blushies, the little chibi blushies. I guess I could make them slightly more realistic here, and then they get increasingly stylized as we get to this guy. And let's just make them nice and round. I'm a chibi with big blushies. And there you go. Give me a moment. I'm going to go grab my books, so that I can say thank you to anyone who's supported me by getting them, like Chibi. Speaking of Chibi, this is my book devoted entirely to Chibi-style artwork and mastering manga, which includes a little bit of Chibi lessons as well, and my very latest book, The 2-Pencil Method. Before I end, though, I do want to say thank you to everyone who gave me advice about selling original art. I got lots and lots of good information from the comment section of that video a couple of weeks back, and I really could not be more grateful for those of you who helped me out with that. But now I think it is time for me to lay down this pen. I want to thank you all for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be back with another one real soon.